I was going to do a skit for this video, but for the sake of time right now, we'll have to save one for another time. But I've been a little frustrated lately, and in case you aren't familiar with what's happened when I got frustrated on this channel, you know it's a bad thing when I get frustrated. And the subject of what I am getting frustrated with today is iOS 18. I mean, I still love my XS Max, and I'm actually starting to have some real issues with this thing, aside from iOS 18, that pretty much I think this thing is only going to survive bare minimum at least one more year, probably by the end of my 13 Pro Max contract. You have to be a viewer of this channel to kind of understand what I mean by that. Basically, just a little over 2 years ago, I bought an iPhone 13 Pro Max. I wasn't happy with that, but because I got it on contract, I am still technically paying that phone off. So yeah, because I wasn't happy with that, I switched back to this phone, and now this phone is finally starting to basically get to the point where it actually is not meeting my needs anymore. So you might think, switch to the 13 Pro Max then? Go back to the 13 Pro Max? Actually, believe it or not, that phone is starting to have issues too. The charge port actually is failing on it, and I kind of need the charge port to function. So by the end of the 13 Pro Max contract, that's going back, and I'm pretty much getting a new phone altogether. Anywho, that's not what this video is about. This video is about my frustrations with iOS 18 because it is really ruining my experience with my iPhone. Not just the XS Max, but the 13 Pro Max as well. All of my issues pertain to both phones. It's not an iPhone XS Max exclusive problem or just any specific generation iPhone exclusive problem. I have two iPhones that I use almost on a daily basis. One of them not as much as the other, but still. I've come across into so many different bugs, and honestly, I'm getting iOS 11 vibes. You guys remember how bad iOS 11 was? Well, I used to have an iPod Touch that ran iOS 11. That's what it actually shipped with, and the experience was actually so bad, I legit could not use the device. I actually had to get a separate device with similar functionality, my iPhone 5C at the time. That's what I needed to use in order to use a basic iPod. I had to get an old iPhone 5C that didn't run iOS 11, so that way I could actually use the device. And then when iOS 12 came around, that actually fixed my issue, and I used my iPod basically until I got this. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of iOS 11 vibes, and iOS 11 was very frustrating to a lot of iOS users, including myself, and I'm getting the same vibes with iOS 18. Somehow, I don't know what Apple has done this year, but they have botched so much when it comes to anything iPhone related this year. Obviously, I'm not particularly a big fan of the iPhone 16 upgrades. Despite that, I don't know, by the end of this year, I might be getting one if the 17 series disappoints me, which I don't know why, but I have a strong feeling that it is going to disappoint me. There was a lot of hardware decisions that Apple made with the iPhone 16 lineup that I've already covered in the last video, and yeah, it is very frustrating. But now we have to talk about the software decisions, because just literally none of this feels like Apple at all. So enough lollygagging about, let's just dive into it already. Okay, before we begin, the reason why I'm comparing iOS 18 to iOS 11 is because I had such a bad experience with iOS 11, and I think you guys deserve the context to know how bad iOS 11 truly was for me. I had a massive problem with trying to use the touchscreen on my iPod Touch. Oftentimes, it was not registering taps at all, despite that the software was basically functioning in the background, but for whatever reason, it refused to respond to touch inputs. But wait, that wasn't the only thing it was doing. It also randomly started just randomly touch, and when it was never in the same spot, it would randomly just receive a touch input. Despite that, I didn't touch the display. It was just it was clicking on things on its own. And then when trying to scroll through the internet or through YouTube on that thing, oh, this was one of the most infuriating experiences. Either one, it would continue to scroll down the list on its own and I can't stop it from scrolling, or another annoying thing, tap the screen and try to scroll myself, but for whatever reason, you know that gesture where if you tap the very top of your screen, it will just bring you all the way back to the top of that page? Well, yeah, it was very annoying when it registered randomly that, oh wait, hey, this guy tapped the top of your screen, meaning let's go all the way back to the top of the list, when you guessed it, I didn't touch the screen. This was one of the most infuriating things about using this device. It got so bad to the point where I legit couldn't use it. Every time it happened, the only way way to fix it was a device restart, and I was doing it at least once per day. It had gotten so bad on that device, I had to ditch it altogether and get the iPhone 5C and use that as my iPod. Because at the time, I didn't have a SIM card. Yeah, that was a very infuriating experience, and I have gotten to the point where I'm getting those similar experiences with iOS 18, particularly in the gestures. You know, the whole swipe up to go home and swipe and hold for multitasking and such. Yeah, I'm getting freezes in the swiping action. In fact, every now and then when I'm typing on the keyboard, this is what brings it up most of the time, randomly the application will kind of start to go home, but it doesn't completely go home. In fact, it just kind of starts and then it gets stuck, and okay, obviously it's in a bad position. I can't use it, so I'm trying to either complete its swipe, just actually trying to swipe it and send it home. Well, no, it just wiggles around in this between home screen and app open state. And obviously I still can't use the app in this current position. I couldn't get it to activate the app switcher and such. It's just stuck mid-swipe. And that is infuriating. Literally, the only way I can actually get it to take me back to the home screen is I have to restart the device. Yes, this is what I mean by iOS 11 in terms of how bad iOS 18 is. Didn't have this issue before iOS 18. And again, this issue is not just present on my iPhone XS Max. My iPhone 13 Pro Max does the exact same thing. The Photos app is also a buggy mess. I don't understand why Apple felt the need to change it, because not only did they change the layout to something less familiar, and now I have to relearn the whole Photos app. That's already annoying enough. But what's even more annoying is now there seems to be a bug where sometimes my phone can't figure out how to prepare a photo for sharing. You know, every now and again you'll see this preparing photos / video for sharing right before it brings you the share option menu. Well, I often get stuck on that, and I'll need to close the app in order to fix that. And once again, this was not an issue prior to iOS 18. And again, it's also present on both phones. I'm also having a lot of audio problems, like volume problems. And this is a weird bug that actually has consisted before iOS 18. I'm trying to remember, was it introduced in iOS 17 or iOS 16? But basically there's this audio bug where for whatever reason, I'm not sure what actually causes it, but for whatever reason, it'll play whatever media or notification time, or I have no idea what controls that. And oftentimes my fix for it, believe it or not, is actually to put my phone in silent mode for a second and then turn it off of silent mode, and that's what corrects it. I don't know what does that, and this has actually been a bug for longer than iOS 18, and it has only got more prominent in this iOS version. I haven't seen any battery life problems like everyone else on Twitter seems to be complaining about. I guess some people are having some battery life issues where it's consuming too much power. I'm not sure what that issue is, because at least in my own personal experience, I'm satisfied with the battery life I'm getting out of my devices given their current state. So no, I'm not really having that type of bugs, but still, these, especially when you're wearing headphones, this is where the max audio volume problem is just a major problem. It's when you're wearing headphones. Oh, it is so nice to hear a chime at max volume in your ears, directly in your ears. Oh, that's just frustrating, like beyond belief. So these are the primary bugs that I've been experiencing, but obviously like this trying to swipe an app home, or it'll even happen when I'm not trying to swipe it home. It'll actually happen when I'm just using the keyboard like normal. I was randomly texting my podcast friends on the podcast. What ended up happening mid-text, I did not touch the home bar. I was nowhere near the home bar, but as I was texting, my phone thought, oh, he swiped to go home. And that's exactly what it did to iMessage. This is iOS 11 all over again. I've been complaining to Apple for a while that we need another iOS 12 effectively. An iOS update that doesn't introduce anything major, but instead just cleans up the house, just cleans up the software. Get rid of these bugs. I've been complaining about this for years, actually. And while no, past times, yeah, my basic bugs were, again, the audio volume thing, though they weren't as prominent as they are now. That was kind of my biggest bug yet. But just in general, iOS 18 is now the worst offender, and It's right up there with iOS 11. It's that bad. And again, Apple is the company famous for their software. What differentiates all of their competitors from each other? Anything in the Android space? What differentiates them? It's hardware, because they're all running Android effectively. There's no difference in terms of the software experience for the most part. But when it comes to Apple, their major differentiator is the software. And software has been one of their key focuses in developing any product. The Mac and iPad, despite that, still that device has lackluster software in my opinion. The iPhone and any other device that requires some software that I haven't mentioned. Their focus has always been the software experience, and right now, I'm sorry, it is garbage. They need to call their software engineers into the house and tell them, no more features. We need to clean this up. This has gotten too far out of control, just like in iOS 11, because at least at this point, I'm having massive problems using my phones. This week, actually, I had to restart this device in particular 4 times and my iPhone 13 Pro Max at least once. This is not supposed to be a typical iPhone experience, but we're back to there at this point, and this is really infuriating. So Apple, I know you're probably not watching this video because I'm not a big enough YouTube channel, though hey guys, please help this video make it to their desk, because I don't know how else to report it. This has just gotten infuriating and I need to do something. I need to say something. I'm not remaining silent on this. Am I switching to Android because of this? No, because still Android does not fit my needs, though I'm gonna be honest, if Apple keeps going down this road of not paying attention to the quality of their software, because iPadOS was already not where it should be, but now that the iPhones have gotten so buggy, I don't know, I might be forced to use it, because again, if I'm having issues just trying to use the apps on this device, then I might have to change platforms. I don't know. I got frustrated with Windows because obviously Microsoft clearly does not care about the quality of their product, and that's why I left them. And Apple's slipping. Their care of the quality of their product, particularly software, it's just gone straight to the toilet. My guess is because they're focusing so heavily on Apple BS, because that's all the investors want. That's what all the shareholders want. And sadly, Apple is legally obligated to please the shareholders. Yeah, this is another reason why I'm frustrated with this whole AI BS trend. It does not help the general user. I'm just trying to use my phone for the basic things, but if I can't text the people that I need to text or initiate phone calls, that's another bug I randomly get. Every now and then, my phone just stops sending outward calls and it just says, call failed, try again later, or something like that. And what fixes that again? Another device restart. Something's gotta change, Apple. We've gone too far downhill. Something's gotta change. Have you guys been experiencing any of these bugs that I've brought up in this video? Have you experienced any other bugs that I did not bring up in this video? What's your experience with iOS 18? Because I know mine's frustrated and I haven't gotten that much response out of a few other people. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the situation. Feel free to explain yours in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.